Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal transfer show. I'm so used to saying that every single morning, but this is the Raw Reaction Show, joining you not at 8 a.m. as we usually would. I couldn't contain myself. I had to get on and do a show this evening, and to be joined, of course, by some fellow Arsenal fans to talk about what was a brilliant performance from everybody involved. I'm very happy to be joined by three fantastic faces. I've just realised that why my audio might not be the best because I've not actually got my microphone plugged in. I'll sort that out shortly. But first of all, thank you to everybody that's joining us live in the chat box. First things first, Leo Diaz, thank you so much for the kind donation. For those that don't know, Leo is, of course, the partner of our beloved Vinny. And so thank you so much for sending in that. I really appreciate it. I'm sure Vinny would have absolutely adored what we witnessed today. So yes, indeed. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to get an update on Vinny's plaque going up at the Emirates soon. I'm going to chase that one up in this week, actually. Fingers crossed. But yes, much love to Vinny, wherever you are, my friend. Let's move into our guests for the evening. First of all, joining us all the way from Chicago, it's John. How you doing, my good friend? You good? You well?
Yeah, doing really well. Thanks for having me on. It's good to be back. And man, in a great circumstance too. Let's put it that way. So we'll get into it. But man, I'm still buzzing. What a performance that was.
Yeah, we all are buzzing, mate. It's been an absolutely fantastic day to be an Arsenal fan, that's for sure. We're also joined by Albert. How you doing, my good friend? You good? You well?
Tom, I'm very well. I've ate well. I've watched some good football on the television. Clean sheet. So it's going well, Tom. It's going very, very well. Thank you.
Yeah, very well indeed. It could not have gone any better, really, for us as fixtures in this particular fashion go.
Yes.
And we can all be very thankful for that indeed. I'm looking forward to getting some of your thoughts in a bit. And making his debut, a long-awaited debut on the Gooner Talk, it's my good friend and colleague, Bailey Keogh. How you doing, Bailey? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm good, CC. Long-awaited debut indeed, and what a time to come on. The perfect time, actually. The perfect result, the perfect Sunday. So yeah, thank you for inviting me on the perfect day.
Absolutely. It is. It's absolutely a pleasure to have on the show and see your pretty face once again on my screen. It's always good. Of course, Arsenal defeated those lot down the road, the Spuds, 2-0 in the North London derby. Being the Raw Reaction Show, that's where we start. Bailey, I'm going to start with you and go in reverse order. Give me your Raw reactions to today's result.
It's a statement win. It's a statement win. I think not winning away from home to Spurs in almost 10 years was a worry, but I think tonight, would you like to say, just it epitomized again a new mentality that Arteta has installed in us and how we are different compared to previous seasons. I think it really was the perfect result, a clean sheet away from home, a dominant performance as well. It wasn't by luck, of course. Tottenham had their spell at the start of the second half, but after that, we looked comfortable. I think that was the first North London derby I can remember away from home in a while where I've just sat back and thought, I actually feel comfortable watching this game, and it is a special feeling.
It really is unrivaled when it comes to beating them lot. Like it's something you can't quite put your finger on how it feels, and words don't really do it justice. It's very personal to every Arsenal fan how they feel after a derby win, but this one, which we've waited for, Albert, for 9 years to win in the league at Spurs. It's been long awaited, and to be honest, frankly, quite embarrassing that it's taken that long to pull it off. But what are your raw reactions to today's result?
Oh, Tom, where do I start? My first message, obviously, I get on well with a lot of YouTubers that are not Arsenal fans, Tom. So I've got a YouTube Tottenham wife who's in the car right now, driving back to Portsmouth from the game, and left her a nice little voice message that she'll listen to. She stopped driving. But Tom, you know what it is? I've always moaned about this with Arsenal. No divine right to win big games of football, but I want to see us go away from home and beat these teams now. We need to start making statements, and I call it a window of opportunity. What I mean by that is within the game today, particularly when it was 1-0, the window of opportunity was there to get that second. Thinking you've got to get the second goal and really, really hammer home the advantage. And they took that window of opportunity, getting a fantastic second goal. But you mentioned about the record. It's been too long. I got sick and tired of going to these away games and not competing and losing quite easily, if I'm being honest. But I think, especially with what happened last season there, and like I said, our record going to Tottenham is not fantastic, but I went there confident. I actually went for a draw, Tom, believe it or not. But
Yeah,
Arsenal's.
I know a lot of people that did.
Yeah, Arsenal's away form. I think probably, Tom, you can correct me. Like in all 6 metrics, there where we rank first. Clean sheets, wins, points. To go there, not to just to win, Tom. That first half was impeccable, and I want Arsenal to stuff Tottenham anyway. But I listened to that flaming Jamie Redknapp before the game, and that wound me up even more. I thought, you know what? Yeah, you're ex-Tottenham, but you're talking rubbish. So I'm glad that performance they put in, particularly in the first half, rubber stamped that game. And listen, it's a massive opportunity taken today.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Craig in the chat says, what an effing win. London is red. 8 points clear. Love seeing an American Gooner on the podcast as well. John, let's get your thoughts. It's, as I said before, it's difficult to always describe the feelings after a win because they are so personal and words don't often do them justice. But what are your reactions to that 2-0 victory?
I mean, so we haven't won at White Hart Lane since I've been coming on your podcast, and since I started. So we're talking about 2015,
So you're taking full responsibility then? Is that
so? No, not since I've been on the podcast, but since I started doing everything. I remember, every time I did a podcast, like back in the day, like it's almost 10 years ago now. I remember saying this will be the time that we win at White Hart Lane in the league, and we never did. And coming on here, we never did. And even going over to London and watching the games there, I tried to go to as many North London derbies as I could, and we never won at White Hart Lane. It's unreal. It's unreal. The fact that when we not only just beat them twice in the season, but we did it in such a way that puts us 8 points clear. That we're playing better football than anyone in the league right now. We have a manager that everyone's behind. We have a team that everyone's behind. So it's not just this win, right? Because it's a long season and we have a lot to go on. And we have a lot to go in the season until it's over. But you can only they say it again and again and again. They got to be modest. They got to take it game by game. They can only play the team in front of them. And I'll say right now, I wish we could play that Tottenham team every week. All right, because we kept hearing all this crap about how, they're this second half team, and to an extent that's true. So I was a little nervous. Even after the second goal went in, I was going, okay, yeah, but what are they going to do in the second half? Because we know this Tottenham team can come back and actually put in a performance in the second half. And you never really know what you're going to get. Either you'll get like a good first half performance for them or a good second half performance. And they came out and they did kind of challenge us a little bit, but only in respect to comparative to the way they were in the first half. So there was never really a chance where, they were dominating any point of the game. There were some dangerous moments. I thought Ramsdale had an amazing game today. I said he was my man of the match. So it was good to see him on the American broadcast get man of the match as well. So and Zinchenko, man, what a player that guy is. Like, it's another level. He made a couple mistakes, fair, but the way that he can kind of dictate our play and keep possession for us is unbelievable. And I mean, I just can go through the list. Thomas Partey, I mean, the guy's a beast. He's an absolute beast. And it's one of those things where you heard that El Neni got injured before the game, like warming up, and you're wondering, like, we're looking forward and saying this could be an immense moment for us, but at the same time, and I'm guessing we'll get to this later, you're looking at that middle of the pitch and you're going, what happens? Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but I'm sure we're going to talk to it later. You asked it and the floodgates are open, so here we are, but
yeah, no, absolutely. Fingers crossed, so we don't have to deal with that because El Neni getting injured was a bit of a reality check, I think, because it made you realise how thin we can be in the squad. Matt Smith coming into the team, we absolutely know that we need to strengthen in that area between now and when the window closes. Fingers crossed we can do that because I don't think Lokonga is the answer anymore in that role. Let's get into some specifics from the game. Of course, the first goal comes from a Lloris own goal. It creates, Bailey, a good dynamic to discuss kind of the parallels between the two goalkeepers, I think, in the game. It was funny because obviously doing the combined 11s at FL, both are good friends, Lee Wilmot and Alistair Gold going with Lloris on the Spurs side in their combined 11s. What? He's had some very good displays. he's had some very bad displays, and Ramsdale's been pretty consistent this season. He's not been I wouldn't say Ramsdale's been outstanding this season. I think that because of course, who's in front of him, he's been very well protected, and that's obviously not meant that he's not had to be in the games as much, which is, a dream for a goalkeeper, really. But in this game in particular, I think probably had his best game of the season and was fabulous.
Yeah, I think you said it there. I think it epitomized the winner and the loser, the two goalkeepers. Lloris, on the other hand, was absolutely diabolical. But Ramsdale was as short as you were like. I think it was the perfect goalkeeping performance. You have to praise the defense when the goalkeeper doesn't have to make amazing saves. But when he gets the ball and he can catch it, he doesn't fluff out if a ball comes in from a corner. I think that epitomizes what you want from your goalkeeper, and that's exactly what Ramsdale did do today. I think the first goal really did make Arsenal comfortable. I think there were times where Tottenham did catch us on the counter attack, and I think that did worry us. But the first goal really helped us to settle in, and from there we only went and got better. So the goalkeepers played a major part. And Ramsdale, just like he was the man of the match on the American broadcaster, Sky Sports also gave him man of the match. I know Gary Neville was very reluctant to give an Arsenal player man of the match, but he had no choice to give Aaron Ramsdale man of the match after his commentary this evening. But yeah, Ramsdale was absolutely sensational. And just on the first goal, I'd like to shout out also Thomas Partey. I think that pass, it was towards Harry Saka, was second to none. It opened the Tottenham defence, who were actually set, but that was such a good pass that it completely...
he passed to Saka as well before the Ødegaard goal as well, didn't he?
He won the ball and passed. It was so good.
Sensational. Absolutely.
And just Bailey again on Ramsdale, and we'll talk about the controversy at the end in a separate part, but he obviously is kind of vilified sometimes for his actions. There's a brilliant photo, if you haven't seen it, of him looking down at Sessegnon after he saves his shot and celebrates. If you've not seen that photo, you need to find it because it's great. But I mean, I think that type of thing. I mean, you look at Emi Martinez for Argentina. Of course, he winds people up, and his Arsenal history winds Arsenal fans up. But I kind of like having a player with personality. I think it's something to look to.
Absolutely. It reminds me of Jens Lehmann when we went Invincible. Sorry, he was the same. He was a very charismatic player on the pitch. He was a goalkeepers need to be a bit crazy, and I think Ramsdale has that element to his game. And it's good to do it when you're winning, of course. I think if you're on the downside, you're not winning, or you're chasing something, I don't think you have a right to do it. I don't think we'll see Martinez doing too much of that for Aston Villa, because of course they're not in the greatest position. But when you're top of the league, you're going to win the game. I think you should do it. I think it proves once again you're superior to the opposition team, and it shows how much of a good performance you have. And as I said, competitiveness only makes your team better. And we've seen it before with Jens Lehmann. And why should Ramsdale not live through his shadow and bring it forward again?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing what ultimately Ramsdale can do between now and the end of the season, because as I've mentioned, he's kind of gone under the radar a bit because of how good the players in front of him have been so far. There's also on Zinchenko in particular. Sam Dean did a really good piece for the Telegraph, if you've been able to read it, on kind of his journey at the club. And one of the things that he pointed out in that article was actually how better we are defensively when he's in the team, which is, I think on the surface, you would think the opposite, because he's more influential going forwards, and you think that leaves us a little bit more vulnerable in behind. But actually, the structure of the team with him in there is really solid, and that actually helps us out defense. I thought he actually dealt with Kulusevski really, really well during the game. Go on, John.
He had 4. He won 100% of his aerial duels today.
Wow.
Away from home against.
He's only 3'2".
Right. So yeah, apparently he can't defend either if you listen to anyone. So but it's partly that he can actually, we keep possession, right? So that it's hard for teams to actually get at us because we have the ball so much. But even when we do, I think that there's some interesting kind of tension between Kieran Tierney and Zinchenko. But I don't think that the defensive side that we get from Kieran Tierney is so much better than Zinchenko. And I know some people might disagree with that, but there's certain games when he turns up, he's just underrated defensively, I think individually, Tierney's probably a better defensive player than Tierney, right. But the impact on the team, I think, makes Arsenal more solid defensively having Zinchenko in there. Ironically, just because of the way that Arteta wants to play suits having that piece of the puzzle in there. So I think that's probably the way to look at it. Tierney is, as I say, one to watch for the summer. He really could genuinely be off. He won't want to be sitting on the bench continuously, but that is the way it goes if you want to be in a table-topping side. Albert, in terms of the other key star performer and the scorer of the second goal, Martin Ødegaard, winner of the Player of the Month for November and December.
another goal. I think that now takes him clear as our top scorer with 8, I want to say, this season, which I think is more than he scored last season for the whole of the last season across all competitions. He has just taken his game to that next level. And the big question around Odegaard has often been that sometimes he goes a bit missing in games. That's the criticism that's been faced. The Newcastle game, the last Premier League game we had, people suggested that he had gone a bit missing despite being one of our best players. So I look at him now and think this was a game where he had an opportunity to show everybody that he can turn up in the biggest of games, and he did that. What did you make of his performance?
Oh, Tom, Captain Odegaard. How can we wax lyrical? With Martin Odegaard, like for me personally speaking, I was always of the view it's not about his talent. To me, his talent's undoubted if you watch him, and he's the way he takes the ball and maneuvers it and finds space and gets on the half turn. He's a beautiful player to watch technically. But I think for me, it was a case of there were games away from the Emirates where I don't think he made much of an imprint. Now, people might say, well, teams set up different to nullify the key players of Arsenal. That's a fine argument. But if he's your go-to man, the man that's meant to be the creator, he needs to come to the forefront a bit more. And one of the biggest things for me, Tom, is he gets himself into such brilliant positions, not to necessarily lay it off or to play that intricate pass, which he can do, by the way, but have a shot at goal, Martin. Captain Odegaard, have a shot at goal, please, because you get yourself into brilliant positions and away from home, particularly as well. He plays well at home at the Emirates, but he to me, he's become more of a key figure and he's a lot more prominent. And his relationship with Saka is exceptional. You mentioned Mazzini being in the team, that the transition of play where he plays and picks up the ball. But Odegaard, another goal, Tom. Great strike, by the way. He had a sighter earlier on in the game, but I find it difficult now for. He's been at the club long enough, Tom, right? Odegaard. I'd find it a bit difficult to understand any Arsenal fans that are still out there, because they do exist on the platform, who have their, how can I put it nicely, Tom, with the word I'm going to use?
Doubts?
No, better than that. So reservations about Captain Odegaard. Yeah, so please tell me your reservations, because when he puts in a performance like that and scores, he bagged the brace against Bournemouth, I believe, as well. Got a goal against Wolves away, is it as well? Did he score against?
Yeah. Did he score both against Wolves?
Yeah.
I think he did.
Even better, Tom. I'm glad you corrected me, Tom. But no, listen, he's been a contributor in many ways other than just being the exceptional talent who picks a through ball. His leadership on the pitch has been exceptional. I'm glad he got a goal today.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, when it comes to criticisms of players, people don't like to be wrong. I don't like to be wrong. It's not a nice moment when you have to hold your hands up and say you got something wrong. But to be honest, when it's for the benefit of the club, it should be pretty darn easy to do it. And Martin Odegaard, I think, has proven his doubters very wrong indeed. John, I want to come to you on the post-match incident, of course, involving Aaron Ramsdale, Richarlison, a Tottenham fan as well. There's two things I want to talk about. The first thing, obviously, is the incident itself. The second one, I'm reluctant to talk about because I don't really want to give this guy too much airtime at all. I don't know if you've seen Richard Keys' post video.
Was it the one where he said it was Arteta's fault, everything?
Yeah, where he points the finger at Arteta for what happened. I get that it's for engagement. I get it's to rile people up. I understand he's probably also at this point dreaming about Arteta's demise at some stage because he can't get him out of his head and lives there rent free. But what did you make of the chaotic scenes we saw at the end of the game?
Well, first of all, Richard Keys is the last person that should be talking about anything related to football, or pretty much anything related to how you should act reasonably, ethically, and morally. So, first of all,
as a human being,
that's the first thing I'm going to say about that. All right. Second of all, listen, emotions are high. I get it. Richarlison is an emotional guy. Ramsdale is, if anything, a guy that can get under your skin, which I love about him. We all love about him. But that's part of the game, right? There's like a level. And I don't think you should be able to put your hands on another player, right? So when he did that, I think that crossed the line. I don't think it's like this end of the world scenario. It is a physical game and everything like that. Obviously, this is outside the bounds of what is acceptable within the rules of the game, and there should be some kind of repercussions for it. And which means there probably won't be, right? But there should be, because I think the next aspect of it would happen with that fan, and I agree with you not wanting to give him too much airtime, is going to kind of dictate the narrative, because that was just so unacceptable what happened. And when I say unacceptable, I mean it's a crime, right? So you can't do that. You can't just kick people. I can't believe we have to like say that nowadays, but it's a reality. And Spurs put out a statement that about it. I don't know if you read the statement that they put out.
Yeah.
When it said he almost attacked. No. He didn't almost attack him. He kicked him. There's another angle where you see he actually kicked Ramsdale. So, I mean, clearly that player should be banned he should never be able to come into a Premier League stadium ever again. And I think
the fan, not the player.
The fan. Well, a Ramsdale should be in there. But the fan should not be in there ever again.
Yeah, of course.
And I think whoever's that kid's parents is should take him aside and really say, hey, or whoever's guardians are should take him aside and really have a stern talking to, because that's unacceptable, and that's not how you behave in a civilized way. I don't care how emotional a game is. I mean, you committed a crime, so that's the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, he was silly enough to be completely uncovered. Not that you should be doing things covered up, of course, but it should make him as relatively identifiable as possible. So hopefully there will be some consequences for that. Arteta didn't want to talk about after the game. Don't blame him. Focus kept on the win, which is important. It's part of me that thinks maybe hopefully there would be more said about it. We're still obviously awaiting the extra second half of the press conference that will come out tomorrow as well. There might be something mentioned there. Conte kind of glossed over it a bit as well, just said it's not what we're about and we need to be respectful and you have to respect the opponents and stuff like that, because we want that same behaviour shown towards us, which I thought was good. But in a week in which Arsenal have received 2 FA charges for misconduct and the failure to control players, when Richarlison went up to Ramsdale as he did, putting his hand in his face, there was also the incident, I think, where you saw about 4 or 5 Spurs players around Craig Pawson at one moment. Unfortunately, the FA have set the bar so low now with what they did with Arsenal in the Oxford game that we have a genuine argument every time. I saw it in the Fulham Newcastle game. I think we saw it. There were people sending me images of the Chelsea game. It happens all the time. Go on, John.
Every single game. I can't think of a game where there isn't some situation where the players are trying to influence the ref in one way. That's part of the game. If you ever played any competitive sport like rugby, football, it doesn't matter what sport it is, there's going to be arguing with the ref. So like, why are we getting treated differently? And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's right there. It's like, whatever, man. I've given up on the FBA. They're nonsense.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all indeed? Let's talk about the wider context, Bailey, of what this means, because obviously this win puts us 8 points clear of Manchester City, who lost themselves to Manchester United. I believe now this is the first time that a lot of bookmakers have put Arsenal as favourites for the title. I often like to check 538's Premier League algorithms and their predictions. After we drew against Newcastle, they actually returned Manchester City to the top of their predictions. But after today's game, Arsenal now are clear as favourites for the Premier League. 55% chance they have them down as winning, with Man City at 36%. They actually have Man United with a 5% chance now of winning after their victory against Man City, which is a lot more than less than 1, which is what it was a couple of weeks ago. So it shows you how quickly things can change. How are you viewing Arsenal as title challengers now?
I think it's impossible now not to view us as title challengers. We're about to hit the halfway mark, being 8 points clear at the top. I think the only doubt is people look at our past, and that is the reason why we're being doubted. If it was Manchester City 8 points clear, if it was Liverpool 8 points clear, even if it was Tottenham 8 points clear, I don't think there'll be as many questions. And I saw Gary Neville's interview after the game, and he still believes that Manchester City will win the league and Manchester United will finish second.
Was he doing this when he said that? Arsenal. Was he saying, I think Man City will win the league, crossing his fingers?
And then words in that, I want Arsenal to win the league, but in reality, we know you don't know. But I think it's unfair now not to class Arsenal as title challengers. I think it would be unfair. I think the game against Manchester United will be major. I think if we win that, then it's set in stone. I think it's impossible not to say we are title challengers. But the game against Tottenham, winning away from home in a North London derby, which is very rare for both sides, I think that really did secure Arsenal's status in the league and their dominance in the league as well. We've gone to many away grounds this season. We've won. We're looking solid. Every game we're playing well. It's not really been flukes, and it'll be unfair now not to class us as title challengers. I think that is set in stone.
Yes. Look, at the end of the day, I can't believe that after all of the people that have said things like, we can't put Arsenal as challengers yet. As soon as United got that win over City, people started talking about United as potential title challengers. And it just kind of shows you the difference in perception. And I don't care, because the longer they write us off, the better it is for us. It keeps the pressure off us. We don't need to talk about Arsenal being title challengers as much as we clearly know that they are at this stage. But yeah, just keep the pressure on everybody else. We will take this. We will take being underdogs all day long, because it makes our job that much easier. Albert, on the title and the challenge at hand, Bailey's mentioned there the game against Manchester United coming up next. Paul Merson said before the game against Spurs that will be a tougher test, playing at home against Man United than away to Spurs. Do you agree with him on that?
I actually do agree with Magic Mercer once, to be honest, Tom. I do. It's funny because if you look at obviously when Ten Hag took over, and if we played United a few months ago, it might be a different type of game. But obviously they've picked up momentum. I think they've won, is it 9 on the bounce or something like that, Tom? I can't remember. So they're flying high. But yeah, Paul Merson was spot on. He was, because Tottenham have been, the games I've seen them play, Tom, they've been poor. I mean, they've been very fortunate to get some of the results they've got this season. But yeah, United's going to be tough, man. Definitely going to be tough. Got them playing really, really well. Rashford's on fire, he's a completely different player 12, 18 months ago. The change is phenomenal. But so I'm confident going into that game. It's going to be tough. But the way we're playing at the moment, this is a different Arsenal. And some of these rival fans need to get it in their heads. This is a different Arsenal team. There's resilience. There's guts. There's a nasty streak to us a little bit as well. We've got speed.
We're not very liked, to be fair.
No,
that's a good thing. Indeed.
I never would have thought it.
Yeah.
But this is a different Arsenal side. You know what it is, Tom? There's sort of moments throughout the season. For example, when we played Liverpool, I think a lot of Liverpool fans, particularly, and a lot of fans of other clubs, thought Arsenal's on a good run, but Liverpool will take care of business as usual. So when we beat them, they're like, oh. So then we played Tottenham away. We haven't won there in almost 10 years. Arsenal got a poor record there. Different Arsenal side. Our away form is exceptional. If someone had told me what we would have had the away form we've had this season 2 years ago, I'd have said, nah, do me a favor. We need to get in a 10 players come in the transfer windows over summer and January. But it's a different Arsenal. The atmosphere at the ground, Tom, as you testify to, there's a buzz, and we've not had it for a long time. So it's an unusual feeling for Arsenal fans that are 21 plus VAT, like myself, or Tom knows. We've seen Arsenal win league titles, but to come back to this sort of kind of talk and bookies' favourites, and so be it. Because Tom, another thing, just for finish up, if a certain team who plays in Sky Blue had put in that first half performance today, front page newspapers on the back page. But because it's Arsenal, we get the credit. We will get the credit, but not as much as a certain other team if they played that well. So give us the credit, people, because we deserve it.
Or maybe even our opponents, if they'd have played that well today, they would have been plastered all over the newspapers, the media darlings that they are indeed. I was a little bit gutted to say that Kane didn't score in the weirdest sadistic way possible, because I kind of wanted him to get that record in a game that Spurs lost. That would have been gloriously magical. But
he might just still do that, by the way. So
true, it can still happen indeed. At the hands of Arsenal, not. But maybe Man City will have to see. That said, I mean, raise your hand if you're not going to be supporting Spurs when they play Man City next week. And by supporting, I mean just wanting them to win that game.
I think a draw.
It's tough one, isn't it?
It's very tough. Yes.
A draw would be good.
It's a draw is, I think, it's what you shamelessly are going to be wanting, because it benefits us, because it means we're not shamelessly wanting Spurs to win. But I think it is the only situation in the world where you really do want Spurs to pick up a win as an Arsenal fan, as if it's going to help you in a potential title fight. I tell you what, though, I'd hate to be a Spurs fan next week, because they might. Can you imagine the what's the word? The conflict that they have. Like, if they win, of course they need to win, because they need to get back towards those Champions League places. If they lose, they've got teams like Brighton, coming up their tail. They've got Liverpool, of course, look dire, as did Chelsea, but they're still going to be up there come the end of the season, I'm sure. Fulham have looked fantastic this season. Newcastle don't look like they're slowing down at all. So, yeah, I would not want to be a Spurs fan thinking, we need to win. But if we beat City or get a point against them, we are basically handing Arsenal such an advantage in the title race. It must be horrific being a Spurs fan anyway. But even next week, it must be even worse. John, I wanted to ask you a question surrounding the idea of, remember that saying of Arsenal are 2 players away from the title, that we used to say for 10 to 15 years, we used to say Arsenal were 2. Were we wrong? And when I say that, I mean, we always kind of put the difference between Arsenal potentially winning a title around, signing 2 world-class players. Now, I think Arsenal have got a group where they've got players that are, burgeoning on world-class. Your players like Saka, your Odegaard, your Martinelli's, players that I don't think I put into the category yet of Mbappe and, the Messi in his day and Luka Modric, players that I think are established world-class players. I think they are players that are burgeoning on that, and are still, a title away or a Champions League or something like that, just to get that credibility in their tank. Not that they aren't credible enough already. But were we wrong when we used to say we're 2 players away? Because I feel like, if anything, what we were away from was a united squad with a manager like Arteta that's got this idea of what he wants and can deliver it with the players that he has, rather than us always going with that player away from being the best of the best.
Yeah, I mean, you can't look. It's hard to look at a season where like Leicester won the league, for example, and think that if we had just in January had dealt with some injury issues. I know, like 2015, Alexis Sanchez gets injured right before January. We're going in really strong in December, and then Giroud kind of forgets how to score for like 15 games in a row. And then it's hard to not look at that and think maybe if we had strengthened a little bit, it would have done good for us in terms of a title race. It's also hard for me to look at seasons where we didn't have a defensive midfielder. And I just think if we had Thomas Partey in that team,
sure,
we could have at least made a push for the title better than we did. So I think there's something to this notion that we were maybe a couple of signings away. But I think once the Wenger project started to deteriorate, and once it became apparent that like whatever he was doing wasn't exactly working very much, and there's a bunch of different reasons for that have nothing to do with Wenger, I think, by the way. But once we were able to kind of solidify our ownership, once we were able to kind of get everyone on the same page, once we were able to get, like you said, a manager who has the team playing the way they're supposed to be playing, you have the fans that are behind everyone 100%. You have these players that are really playing for the badge, and that, it's a breath of fresh air for everyone, easy to get behind. I think it's all become kind of a like a perfect storm of things that needed to have happened right in order to be in the position that we're in right now. I don't think it's one or two other things. So to go back to your question, maybe it was a little short-sighted or a little bit, romantic to think maybe we're just 2 signings away. Maybe there was something more that needed to happen. I don't know if I can answer that. All I can say is that it seems to be all coming together in the right way and at a perfect time for us. And, it's just, when you look at what Arteta's done, considering this is his first job as a manager, right? I'm not talking about assistant manager or anything like that. It is amazing. It is amazing. And I'm still in awe every time I see us win like that. And I see the people talking about us being title contenders, and think about how far we've come with him, from the uncertainty of Unai Emery, as good as he was at times and as bad as he was at times, and the uncertainty post Wenger, to be able to say like we have such a bright future right now, and it's not one that's like precarious, because that's the thing. I think it was mentioned earlier. We're not ready yet as Arsenal fans to kind of believe 100%, because we're going to get our soul crushed maybe, and I feel like that's become less of a chance. And every game I see us play, it's smaller and smaller of a chance. And that could change, obviously. But I'm taking game by game just like the players are. So are we
training by training? Arteta says we got to do now. Training by training session, not even game by game.
Yeah, we're gonna get sued, and it's just gonna be like hour by hour, guys.
Yeah.
We're just taking this, But yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I don't know if you can answer it right, but I'm more inclined towards your second characterization of it, that it was this kind of totality of things that had to happen correctly, which is what we're seeing now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there was a big obsession, I think, around Liverpool's model of signing Alisson and Van Dijk and, seeing them sign those two and then go and win the title in the Champions League. And that obviously makes you think, well, if we would do that sort of thing. But you look at where we are now. Yes, Jesus has been big. Yes, Zinchenko has been big. But they've not... I don't look at them as the standouts amongst everybody. Jesus has stood out in certain ways for sure, but in his absence and without his goals, even when he was there, we still found ways to win the game because of Saka, because of Martinelli, because of Ødegaard, because of Xhaka, because of the defensive performances of who's in the back five. So it's all of those things. And it's always, I think, been more about the team than adding one or two. Now it's about obviously adding to the squad and having competitive options. And I'm sure we'll get onto transfers before we wrap up inevitably. But yeah, it's critical that we make sure that we've got kind of this idea that it's about the collective rather than it is adding the one or two, I think, to this team. The closest comparisons to Arteta for me right now are, obviously Guardiola for the obvious ones, and the other one's Zidane, because both of them took a first job at the top level, at a top elite side. Real Madrid for Zidane and Barcelona for Guardiola. The difference between those two is they both managed at a youth team level before, whereas Arteta was just an assistant to Guardiola. And obviously Guardiola won with Barca B. He won the third tier, I think, in Spanish football with Barca B. And then, of course, Real Madrid's Castilla side never did amazing things, but Zidane did really well there and obviously came into that Real Madrid team and won several Champions Leagues. And now the comparison will be if Arteta manages to win a Premier League this season, that those types of comparisons will certainly come to the fore. And the question around kind of that elite group of managers, I remember having a chat with Josh Williams on the Arsenal Way about this, is that you look at the elite group of managers and it's really Klopp, Guardiola, and he included Conte, ironically, in there, which right now it's difficult. But you could understand maybe at the time before he joined Spurs why you would have put him in there. And beyond that, maybe Ancelotti, of course, I think. But even then, the Everton job was quite a challenging one for him, even still. And if Arteta wins the Premier League, it's difficult not to start talking about him in those circles. Yes, it's one big trophy, and these guys have won loads. But it's difficult to say that he's not going to be talked about in that bracket of top coaches if Arsenal manage to pull that off this season. We are going to move to questions for the final part and 20 minutes of today's show. Marcus is asking a question specifically for you, Bailey. And Marcus, of course, has joined us regularly in our Arsenal Way chat. He's very familiar with Bailey's antics and now our antics, that's for sure. I've had a few questions from Marcus at Bailey and Morning Show saying, what does Bailey think we should do in the market about Aouar? Should we finally jump for him? Maybe we'll get your thoughts on that. But he says, realistically, how do we sign and how confidently, who do we sign? I've read that completely wrong. Who do we sign and how confident are you we don't do well in these January windows?
Well, I think it goes without saying, TC, we go straight in for Hussein Mauda from Lyon. I'm joking. I don't think he is the required signing, unfortunately.
Have you finally changed your mind?
There's always a summer transfer window, and there's always time for Aouar to prove himself in the last 6 months of the season. But for now, I think we should sway away from Hussein, unfortunately. But we'll get back there, I'm sure. But I think it goes without saying, I think we do need a winger. I think after losing Mudryk, for me, I've got a 4-man shortlist, a 3-man realistic shortlist, but a 4-man shortlist. I think my dream signing would be a Rafael from AC Milan, but I just don't think that would happen in January. But then you do have Rafinha. I'll also go for maybe a Wilfred Zaha, and I'm also looking at Moussa Diaby, who I think is a quality player as well. My only issue with Rafinha will of course be the clear, and Leandro Trossard. I can't forget about Trossard either. But
does the things going on at the moment, Bright, not worry you with that?
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah,
I don't feel like we have the full picture, to be honest.
I do agree with you. I think we have to learn more. So I know Arteta wouldn't stand for any such things. You saw Guendouzi, Aubameyang, of course, Mesut Ozil. If you do go against the grain, it doesn't work out well for you at the club. So with Trossard doing it at Brighton, it doesn't really bode well. But just going back to Rafinha, I do want him in the club, but my ego is getting in the way because I know he did choose Barcelona and potentially Chelsea in the summer. Do we bite the bullet and just bring in Rafinha? I think it is a business type of organization. So I would not be against bringing in Rafinha. But of course, Wilfred Zaha is also there available. Again, we're not bringing in a player, a winger to start. We're bringing in a player who can make an immediate impact from the bench aside from Martinelli and Saka, of course. I don't think Wilfred Zaha would be a bad option. And Moussa Diaby, I know we're interested in him in the summer. It would be a costly deal, but I do think he would be long-term. He would be an excellent signing, similar to Mudryk, but I think he's even more proven than Mudryk, just that Mudryk had the highest ceiling in the 60 games they did play. But I think Moussa Diaby would be a great option. That would be my choice if I had to choose between the three players.
No, fair enough. It's a good shortlist. I think Arsenal absolutely need to be looking at wide players. Leao's an interesting one because he's one of those where I feel like if he went in with a really big bid and a good contract offer, I think he might be tempted. Remember he did that interview where he spoke about Arsenal, didn't he? So it'd be interesting to see if we did tempt AC Milan and Leao with a potential move. Let's go to Albert with this question from Sean. Who else is looking forward to watching the turmoil of Chelsea trying to offload their bloated wage earners with the same leverage we had with Mustafi and Kolasinac? What do you make of Chelsea's kind of mad business in the window?
Oh, Tom, I took a back seat when I saw that tweet coming through from David.
I went out for dinner and turned my phone off. I was like, I'm not having this. I'm just not doing it.
I think someone's touched on it earlier, and Tom, I don't really the January transfer window for Arsenal is not really a good relationship with any Arsenal fan, to be honest with you, because he's never great. My ink is permanently dry on the paper because I'm not going to come up with any names because I just won't do it, Tom, to be honest. But as for Chelsea, I think, Tom, to put it back to you in a way, I'll answer the question with the Mudryk thing, right? Was that a case for Chelsea where that was someone that they clearly identified, or they just went and done the deal because Arsenal were in the running for it?
Mate.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what I'd say to Arsenal fans with the Mudryk thing, yes, he's a promising player and he's not had too many games of football in his career so far and a great talent, but I think it highlighted something to me what Mikel Arteta said to Ian Wright in the Adidas interview during COVID. And he mentioned, I can't remember the exact words, Tom, because it's too long ago. My memory's not that good. But it basically, the moral of the story was if you have to convince players to come to Arsenal, it's absolutely a non-starter. Yeah. And for me, I take that approach. You'll never see me tweeting or losing my head that we didn't get him or someone else from previous years before. If they don't come to Arsenal, they come to Arsenal. What I'm hoping is that Arsenal have a plan B and a plan C, because these guys are, they have guys on board in the hierarchy that should be looking at these things. So, but in relation to that question, I don't get it, Tom. I don't get it. I don't get the Felix guy in there. I don't get Mudryk guy in there. I just don't get it at all. I really don't understand it.
I've had a lot of time to reflect on the Mudryk kind of situation, and I really don't believe that he wanted to really go there.
No,
I think that he's been, strong-armed into that move. I think that Shakhtar have basically said we can't say no to this, and we really need this deal. And maybe he would have preferred to wait until the summer. It was obvious how much he wanted Arsenal. Like he couldn't have made it any clearer if he tried. That he wanted to move to Arsenal.
That's the mad thing.
And I don't like people comparing this window to last window, because last time we made the mistake of going too long into a window with a player that didn't care for us in Vlahovic, didn't want to move, and yet we really did kind of hang on the hope that he might. With Mudryk, we agreed a deal weeks ago with Mudryk that he was more than happy to come to Arsenal. But what we wouldn't compromise on is our valuation of the player. And for Shakhtar, they would have been buzzing yesterday when they got that call from Chelsea to say that they were coming to meet their valuation. Chelsea are a menace in the market, and unfortunately are, along with a number of other teams, not just in this country, but beyond, of just inflating the prices of players ridiculously beyond what they're actually worth. And unfortunately, that makes it very difficult for us to do. That's why I asked Arteta in the press conference a couple of weeks ago about the difficulty of getting valuations of players. He turned around then and said players move where they want to go. And if I speak to him again in a future press conference, I'd be keen to ask if he thinks now he was wrong about that because of what happened. But I still think it is, unfortunately, a lot to do with the financial demands that clubs can have, because someone was willing to pay that 100 million euros. and if they weren't, I think Arsenal would have ended up getting him. But because Chelsea exist, I reckon if Chelsea have got Enzo Fernandez, they probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But when they didn't get him, and I tell you what, I've spoken to a load of Chelsea fans who are really at ends and at odds with what they've done because they desperately need a midfielder, and yet for some reason they brought in their 37th winger of their squad. So I don't know. And I'll tell you, I do feel sorry. Well, I don't really feel sorry for him because he left us, but Amari Hutchinson must be looking at who's in front of him now and going, why did I move? He would have been behind Saka next season if we don't sign any right winger. He would have been behind Saka. Genuinely believe he's that good that he could have done that. But yeah, how funny now things are. Ethan, who is our brand new member, John says, Eddie has looked exhausted towards the end of matches in the last few games. He can't do it on his own at the moment. Surely he needs support.
When you say can't do it on his own, needs support, are we talking about goals from other sides in midfield, or is he talking about like a signing like to back him up?
Yeah, I think he is. I think he means like at the moment we've not really got anyone to take off and bring on for him at the moment to give him those reps.
It's true. So it's really a question of how long we're willing to roll the dice for Gabriel Jesus to come back, right? Because first of all, there's going to be some kind of a downtime for him. He's going to need to adapt again. Maybe not though. I mean, look at Zinchenko, who comes back from injury and he's in the starting lineup, against a big away side. So maybe let me start this way. I agree. I think that he's looked less effective, more tired. Looks like he's making mistakes towards the end of the match. He gave away a kick that led to them having possession, and twice I think it was in the second half. So what he's done, stepping up and doing what he's done the last couple games that he's had the opportunity to, has been great. So I don't want to take anything away from Eddie by saying that he's maybe tired. This is a title race is not something that's easy physically to do or mentally or emotionally. So I guess to answer the question, I mean, it wouldn't hurt, right, to get some support for him, to have an option off the bench, or to come up with some strategic way within the squad, whether you bring ESR on the left, Smith Rowe, and then put, Martinelli up top, or however Arteta comes up with a way to do it. I trust him to figure it out farther than any way I could come up with. He sees the players and in training if he thinks there's a way of doing it. But yeah, I think that it would be good to get Eddie some backup.
I agree with you. I think Eddie's done more than I could have asked, at the moment. Yes, he could score a couple more goals maybe, and he's had some chances that he's missed, but he scored a critical goal against Brighton. He's scored the goals against Oxford to help us progress. Did he score against Brighton? I'm sure he did. He scored against West Ham and Brighton, didn't he? Back to back, and then didn't score against Newcastle.
He's had some great goals this season.
Yeah, the goal he scored against Brighton in the League Cup game that we lost was a fantastic finish. And if he can do that and get into those positions, I think it's his first touch and confidence at the moment that let him down today. Like the pass from Xhaka that he just kind of miscontrolled. If he puts himself through, I back him to hit one-on-one, but he just put himself in a position that was very much favouring Lloris in that moment. But he's running, his energy is pressing, he's dropping deep, he's linking play. He's a nightmare for the defenders because you're always trying to track where he is. He's got good speed, good reaction time as well. And he is clinical when he's put in those positions often. And I'll tell you what, I'd probably back him one-on-one more than I would Gabriel Jesus to finish a chance right now. But I tell you what, Gabriel Jesus, when he comes back, the fact that we're doing what we're doing and we've still got him to come back is so great. It's such a great thing to have right now. Speaking of players coming back, Saswat's in the chat says, Bailey, is recalling any of our high-performing loanees a feasible option if we fail to sign anyone? I understand there's things like club relations and stuff, but there's desperate times call for desperate measures. So, Bailey, obviously the players that we could call upon are, first of all, Nicolas Pepe, who is at Nice on loan. You've got Folarin Balogun, who's at Orms on loan as well. And you've got Charlie Patino in a midfield sense, who's on loan at Blackpool. They're the three main ones that I look to. I don't necessarily look to Austin Trusty as someone that we need to bring back in defence at the moment. I don't look to Nuno Tavares and think we would look to bring him back at the moment. But they're the three that are being talked about. Pepe less so, but Balogun and Patino are the main two. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say no to all three options. I think we sent them out on loan at the start of the season for a reason. They're there to develop. You saw Balogun had a spell in the Arsenal side where he wasn't quite ready. Now, do you want to stunt his development by bringing him back to be a backup once again? Or do you want to think long-term rather than short-term? And I think it's an option we should not utilize. Balogun's having a season of his life at the moment with Rams, and I think we should let him continue that, because by the time the next season comes, he could be a much more ready player, or we could use him as an asset and sign him for much more money, sell him for much more money, should I say. And it's the same for Charlie Patino. I don't think Charlie Patino was ready yet. I think they need to do a full season. You can't just break a player's development to bring him back into the squad. There's no saying that they're even ready for Premier League football yet. I don't think it's good to take that risk. We have players like El Neni and Samuel Okonga at the moment who I think could even be still more of a use than a player like Charlie Patino. Let him develop, let them finish their seasons, and then come back in pre-season where you can really judge if they're ready or not. Because if you make one bad decision with a youngster, sometimes it's hard for them to get back onto the route they were doing. And with Nicola Pepe, I think it also, once again, no. I think we need to try to once again generate the most revenue we can from him, the most money we can from him. And if he's coming to be a backup, we can't really sell him because he's not playing. So he's going to be a backup. It's not great. So again, we've sold him. We've put him out on loan for a reason. Let them finish their stunts away from the club and then come back. Or just please just sign a player in the window. Let's not get to this conversation of even needing to discuss to bring in to recall somebody from their loan.
So let's say we're in the last hour of the transfer window and we've not signed anyone, and we're not going to sign anyone. You'd still just keep them all where they are.
If I had to choose one player, it would be Nicola Pepe. I would not bring back Balogun or Patino, simply because I'm thinking long term and I'm thinking of their futures and their development. I think bringing them back now too soon could stunt that, and I would not do that. I think with Pepe, I'd take that risk and bring him back. But it's still a no for me. Still no for me.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about Pepe's not really someone I've really considered, to be honest, just because I'm kind of checked out on Pepe, to be honest, as I know a lot of fans have, to be fair. But yeah, it's an interesting option. Zizzy, thank you so much for the donation. News just in: Ramsdale is to receive an FA charge for assaulting a Spurs fan's foot with his back. Fantastic stuff.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it would. You wouldn't be surprised, would you? Chris P, thank you so much as well. Business plan for Clive from the Arsenal Vision podcast. Do an ASMR recording of AFC fans. 5 seconds. Arsenal are Premier League favourites. Spurs fans, mic drop. No need to work again. Maybe something to drop Clive. I love that I'm getting money for advice to Clive. Like, I feel like they should be dropped. You can always subscribe to the Vision's Patreon, Chris, but I appreciate it. Let's jump into the chat box and get another couple of questions before we wrap up. Let's go to Freddie, who says, Albert, Tom, I am. Is it the game this evening? And I saw what happened with the fan in Ramsdale. It was shocking. And the fan came rushing, answering directly in front of me. And I was silently shocked. It's not really a question, Freddie, but I think we were all equally shocked with what happened. Bradley, let's throw this one to you, Albert. With the injury to El Neni, I think Arsenal need to stop delaying the inevitable and bring back Patino. Can instantly put him in the squad and he can cover 6'8". I didn't get, obviously, your thoughts on the loan side of things. So touch on that, but also your feelings on reinforcing the midfield and how confident you are or not about that position being reinforced.
Tom, I'm never confident about the centre midfield position at Arsenal. That's the case for years. It's kind of what Bailey said about the players. When you send them out on loan, there's obviously a reason for that, because they're not ready for the first team, or maybe they're not confident in terms of them bringing something to the first team ASAP. So I wouldn't bring any of them back. What I would say in regards to the any transfers potentially coming in, no one saw the Fabio Vieira one coming. If anyone did see it coming, then they're lying. That's straight up. So we're 16 days in, Tom, yeah? When do I start panicking as an Arsenal fan?
Now?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I would be
2 months ago.
Yeah. I would be. Yeah. We're halfway through now. It's the end of the month's gonna come as quick as that. So I said we'd get 2 players in the January transfer window. Even with that, Tom, I'm twitching a little bit. I'm not sure. If Arsenal have got something up their sleeve, don't wait. Could we see some action now? So it's important. Tom, we need to strengthen. Listen, I said it'd be lunacy if Arsenal finding themselves in the position that they are now, a few games ago, how many weeks ago, if they don't strengthen from a position of strength. To make the same mistake once is crazy. To do it the second time would be utter madness. So, Edu, Arteta, whoever is the Arsenal, please just do something because it's needs must in the.
I'm here on my knees.
Yeah, make it happen, man.
Yeah, it is. We are just sitting and waiting now. And when I say sitting waiting, I mean getting our phones and just doing this and refreshing Twitter every 5 seconds.
Tom, where are you? Like in sort of a scale of 1 to 10 of. Are you at the panic stations yet, or you like okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am. I am, and John, I'll ask you on this as well in a second. I am panicking because I don't think I would be if we were going for top 4, and I'd just be like, we need to be patient. Let's just see what happens between now and the end of the window. But because of the opportunity that we have, I'm so scared of us wasting what we could have this January. And this morning I did the phone-in show and we had some really good guests on. And yes, I'd say that 90% agreed with where I was at with Edu. But a couple of people came on and had their views. One of them, Kian, said this morning that he was, his frustration was that we feel like we've wasted time. And I certainly agree in the sense that I feel like we've wasted time. It feels like that. But ultimately, I know why we did what we did is because we were so genuinely convinced that Mudryk would be ending up at Arsenal that we were willing to invest the time that we've done this window, which is, it sucks. It's just the reality of the situation that we've got gazumped by a stupid club.
That's a very diplomatic way of saying that.
They are a stupid club, John.
It's a very diplomatic, reserved way.
It is very
of describing
I hate
Chelsea.
them with all my being. I just can't stand Chelsea Football Club. I really can't. But yeah, look, I am panicking because of the situation, Albert, because of the opportunity. That's why I'm panicking a bit more. And usually I would, be maybe more reserved and have more faith and more patience. But I'm just so scared of wasting this chance, this window. John, give me your thoughts on this before we wrap up.
Oh, if we waste our chances, terrified if we do that. I don't necessarily think we will.
Is it sackable if we lose the league for Edu?
No. But well, hold on.
Because I've heard fans say, I'm not saying that's where I sit. I'm asking it because I know that fans are asking.
Let me. It depends, right? Because if we go out and we actually make some signings and we just get unlucky, so I'm not going to answer yes or no to that because it really depends on the manner in which we go out, right?
I'm asking because I know fans are asking that question.
Fans say a lot of things. Okay, so I'm really concerned with like what in a realistic universe, like if we actually don't do anything and lose the league, I think yes. I think without a doubt, if it's very obvious that the middle of the park is extremely precarious. Okay, if we lose Thomas Partey or Granit Xhaka right now, probably less so Granit Xhaka, more so Partey. I don't think that we can effectuate the game plan that Arteta wants and play the way that's going to put us in a legitimate contention for the league anymore. All right. So, and with El Neni injured, that's even more so the case. So, if we don't make any signings and we lose because Partey gets injured or something else happens and Partey can't play anymore, I don't think that is something that is not foreseeable, and it would fall on their shoulders. So
yeah,
again,
I say I do because it can't fall on Arteta because Arteta couldn't say any more about wanting reinforcements and wanting us to not waste windows. Arteta could not say or do more. It's not on him. He said the player that he wants. We've not been able to get him. I'm sure that they've talked about other potential targets they want. They tried to go for Rafinha. The information is that he has no interest in leaving Barcelona, so I don't think that's got a chance of happening. The reason why I asked the question is because obviously a lot of people this morning were very angry with Edu, and I can understand why they're angry. I'm not necessarily with them with their anger, but I understand why they're angry. And if you look at this window and the opportunity and say Arsenal don't sign a midfielder or don't sign a forward, and let's say Saka gets injured, touch wood. Let's say Partey gets injured, touch wood. And that costs us, let's say we miss out on the title by a point. In a game where we didn't have Saka or we didn't have Partey, that if we had them, we probably would have won. I mean, I look back to that Man United game early in the season. We didn't have Partey and we lost that game. And I feel as though if we had Partey, we probably wouldn't have lost that game. So that's why I'm thinking where I have to be a little bit more humble with my view of people that are probably towards the nth degree of the spectrum on this, that are questioning Edu's legitimacy. If we miss out on this window, we waste this window for the second year running and it costs us again. We'll see what happens. I really hope this has got a positive end to this window because it's a chance I don't think we can waste. It's going to be a fun ride these next 2 weeks. You can follow all of the latest transfer news, of course, on our 8 a.m. morning shows. It's a joy to do those. It was this morning, genuinely, even though it was a painful chat. It was great getting people's thoughts. So if you haven't listened to our phone-in show, it was an hour and 55 minutes worth of chat. So you can go and listen to that if you like. It's certainly worth it, and we've got a good feedback from it. We're going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. Do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Bailey, absolute pleasure to see you, my friend. You, of course, present your very own. I say present. You argue on another podcast a lot. I've tuned in for some of them, and boy, you get battered sometimes for your opinions. Tell people where they can find you, my friend.
Absolutely, it's great. Thank you for bringing me on, TC. And yeah, guys, you want to see me as TC said, Tom said, I get battered because I'm the only Arsenal fan on the podcast. It's a bunch of us. There's 4 of us. We all support different teams. So you can find us at YB OFCL on Instagram and Twitter. But if you want to find us on YouTube, it is at Your Boys. So you can search us there. But again, TC, thank you as always, mate, for bringing me on as well.
No, absolute pleasure to have you back on, my friend. It's been too long. Hopefully, it won't be that long again. Albert, always a pleasure, my friend. Yes, Albert, as you like to say. Tell you, there is nothing better when you open your phone and you've got a voice note from Albert that just says, "Yes, Tom." Starts off every voice note the same way. I love it. But thank you for joining me, my friends. I look forward to hopefully seeing you maybe next week, potentially. Hopefully, if we sort out the deals. Yes, hopefully a lot of us are going to be meeting in London for some food because, of course, the boys from America are over. Sophie as well, I should say, is coming over as well, which is good. So, yes, hopefully be able to get to see you. But give yourself a shout out and your channel as well, of course, mate.
Tom, thanks for the invite. It's not been that long, so I'll let you off. It's fine. So great to meet Bailey and John. But yeah, Albert JT, we've got my own channel. Life stories will be coming back very soon. Very nice content series that I like to do, not just Arsenal based. So look out for that. And yeah, come and subscribe, people. I'm not too bad to listen to sometimes.
He's brilliant. Go listen to him. You can find him at Albert J TV. And lastly, the host of the invisible Arsenal Miami podcast, which has not been in circulation for some time because he's moved to Chicago and it's no longer valid. But John, thank you so much for coming on. Absolute pleasure. Again, it's been too long and good to speak to you, my friend. So tell people where they can if they would like to find you.
Yeah, you can find me at 305 Cast. My Arsenal Miami podcast is a little weird since I'm in Chicago, so it's not something I've done in a long time, and I haven't had a lot of time to do much else. But maybe I'll do if we win the league.
I was going to say if we win the league, you've got to do one. Sure,
I got to do another one for old times. I mean, I was looking back. The first one I did was back in like 2014 or 15, so it was a long time ago. So maybe one more if we win the league. I think.
So the last one was in 2016.
The first one.
The first one. Oh, sorry. The last one must be like 2020. Sure, on 2019 maybe.
It was a while ago. I can tell you. I can tell you. I'll tweet it later.
Whilst John's finding that, just a couple of super chats before we wrap up. Tom, thank you so much for the kind donation. I will be off my nuts if multiple teams, including Tottenham, don't get charges against them from the FA for the behaviour after this weekend. And Chris, again, thank you, pointing out what indeed Mudryk is apparently earning, £100 million, of course. Not in terms of wages, I don't think, but that's obviously the fee. Apparently, his wages are very heavily incentivised. I'm not surprised, considering he didn't want to play for him, so they're going to need to be. Have you found it, John? Do we know when the last one was?
The last one I did was when Raul got fired.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
It's been a while.
It's been a very, very long time. Just clearly not a fan of Arteta. That's
I was so upset. I was so upset that we got rid of Raul that I had to
podcast again.
That
was the breaking point for John. Anyway, thank you, Chatbox, for tuning in. Thank you for all your questions. Sorry that we couldn't get to all of them. I'll try and tackle more of them, of course, in the 8 a.m. show tomorrow. You can read, of course, all the Fallout winners and losers piece going out tomorrow morning. You can check out Bailey's stuff, of course, written work at Football London as well. Go follow the guys. Go subscribe to their channels. I will see you again very, very soon tomorrow morning, as always. And as always, up the Arsenal.